My name is Marjorie Bennett, and in 3 days, I will turn 68. This morning, I sat by the kitchen window, watching the rain slip down the glass in long, tired streaks. Kansas City in April always brings its share of gray skies, but today the clouds felt heavier than usual. They mirrored something inside me. Something I couldn't quite name. I held a warm mug of Earl Grey in my hands. No sugar. Just a bit of milk, the way Harold used to make it. It had gone cold, but I didn't move. Just watched the way the drops on the window gathered, twisted, and disappeared down the pane. This house has been my world for over 4 decades. I taught high school math for nearly as long. For 40 years I explained the elegance of numbers, the logic in every formula. But life, unlike numbers, rarely follows clean patterns. Since retirement my days have grown quieter. I used to treasure silence. Now it feels more like an absence, an emptiness. Harold passed 10 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. One day we were planning a summer trip to Yellowstone. The next, I was standing in a funeral home trying to remember how to spell widow on a form. 10 years, and I still talk to him sometimes, when no one's listening, or when the loneliness becomes too loud. The rain kept falling. The to-do list on my notepad remained untouched. Groceries, maybe the library, if the weather improved. All the chores of a Tuesday morning, but behind every item was the same quiet question. Would anyone remember my birthday this year? Last year I got a text from my daughter-in-law Kendra. No call, just a message. Happy birthday, Marjorie. Brian's in a meeting. Kids have soccer. Busy weekend. Talk soon. But we never did. I don't expect much anymore. A call. A visit. Maybe someone remembering what I like in my tea. It's not the grand things I miss. It's the small kindnesses. The ones that used to show me I mattered. Outside the rain softened. But inside I still felt like a forgotten note in a song no one plays anymore. The phone rang just as I stood to rinse out my cold tea. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Normally I might have let it go to voicemail, but at my age any call might be important. I picked up. Mrs. Bennett? This is Angela from Riverbend Beauty Salon. Just calling to confirm your appointment for tomorrow morning at 10. I paused. I think you may have the wrong person. I didn't book anything. Oh, she said, sounding genuinely surprised. It was scheduled this morning, under your name. I was about to politely decline, but then I hesitated. Why not? I couldn't remember the last time I did something just for myself. A haircut. A bit of pampering. It suddenly felt like a small defiance against the dullness I'd let wrap around me. Yes, I said. I'll be there. After the call, I went upstairs and opened the closet. Most of my clothes were practical neutral. Garments chosen for function, not attention. But in the back, wrapped in plastic, hung the blue silk blouse Harold had given me on our 30th anniversary. To match your eyes, he'd said. I pulled it out and held it up to my reflection. My hair was entirely silver now, the skin around my eyes softer, worn. But my eyes the deep, clear blue of Lake Michigan. In summer they were still mine. Still exactly as he remembered them. I laid the blouse on the bed. Later that afternoon, I dialed Brian's number. It rang several times before he picked up. Hey Mom, everything okay? His tone was distracted, mildly impatient. I just wanted to remind you that Friday's my birthday, I said, trying to keep it casual. I thought maybe you and Kendra and the kids could come by for a little while. There was a pause. I could hear background voices. Then his reply. We've got a lot going on that day. Kendra's got a presentation, Maya's got rehearsal, and Eli. I understand. I cut in before he finished the list. It's all right. But then, his tone shifted. Actually, maybe we can swing by for an hour or two. Around 2 o'clock. My breath caught. That would be wonderful. The moment I hung up, something shifted inside me. For the first time in a long while I felt anticipation. Not the anxious kind, but the warm kind. The kind you feel when you're preparing for guests who used to call you Mom with affection, not formality. I pulled out my old recipe book, pages worn and stained with years of memories. I decided to make Brian's favorite eggplant lasagna, just the way Harold liked it too. A chocolate pecan cake followed, and a big veggie salad in case Maya was still avoiding meat. For Eli, I baked a batch of homemade chocolate chip cookies. He used to sneak them off the counter when he thought I wasn't looking. The next morning, I kept my promise to myself. I went to the salon. Angela greeted me warmly, and for once, I didn't feel invisible. She trimmed my hair, softened the silver with a light ash tone. "You look 10 years younger," she said, and I let myself believe it. I bought a new blouse on the way home, sky blue, soft fabric, comfortable but lovely. The kind of thing you wear when you want to feel noticed. Later that day, Clara Monroe came by, my neighbor, my friend. One of the few people who didn't treat me like I was slowly fading away. "Birthday prep?" she asked, stepping in with a tin of cookies and a bucket of cleaning supplies. "I told you I had it covered," I smiled. "Let an old woman do something useful," she grinned. "Besides, I want to see that ungrateful son of yours with my own eyes." "Clara." "Don't Clara me, you're too nice, Marjorie. Always have been?" We spent the afternoon scrubbing, dusting, setting the table. Between chores we talked. About Harold. About the past. About how Brian had changed. "Do you think they'll come?" I asked. "They'll come," she said. "But the question is, what are you really expecting from them?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't know. Was I hoping for kindness? A card with my name written in familiar handwriting? A moment of connection? Or maybe just not to feel like a burden in my own home? Friday arrived with a break in the clouds. After a week of rain, the sun finally peeked through, painting the living room with a soft morning glow. I took it as a good sign. By noon, everything was ready. The lasagna baked golden in the oven. The cake sat neatly on a platter. Salad chilled in a glass bowl. The cookies were arranged in the same ceramic dish I used when Brian was little. I changed into my new blouse and navy pants, light makeup, a touch of lip color. Not to impress, just to feel like myself again, present, visible. 2:00 came. Right on time, a car pulled into the driveway. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "Happy birthday, Mom," Brian said, stepping forward and hugging me stiffly. His arms barely touched my shoulders. He smelled like department store cologne in obligation. Kendra followed. A quick nod. A tight smile. "Hello, Marjorie." She wore a sharp gray suit and pearl earrings, like she'd come from a board meeting rather than her mother-in-law's birthday. The kids trailed behind, eyes glued to their phones. "Maya," Ellie I greeted. "You've both grown so much." Maya mumbled something without looking up. Eli just shrugged. I led them into the living room, trying not to let the chill settle into my bones. I made lunch. Just something simple. Lasagna, salad, chocolate cake. Brian raised an eyebrow. "You didn't have to do all this, Mom." "It's just food," I said gently. "I'm glad you're here." We sat, we ate. Brian complimented the lasagna. Maya admitted the salad wasn't bad. Eli went back for seconds, but Kendra barely touched anything. "I'm watching my figure," she said, dabbing at her mouth with a napkin. I tried small talk, asked Maya about school, about the play Brian had mentioned. "I heard you're playing Juliet." "Yes," she replied without emotion. "I'd love to see it." "There are only 4 tickets," Kendra cut in. "For us and my parents. Maya's very close to them." "I understand," I said quietly. I turned to Ellie. "How's soccer?" "I swim now," he muttered. Brian jumped in. "He got a camp scholarship. Coach thinks he's got real potential." "That's wonderful," I smiled. Then Brian stood up. "We brought you a gift," he said. Kendra handed me a box, medium-sized, wrapped neatly with a ribbon. A flicker of hope rose in me. Maybe this was their way of showing they cared. That they remembered me after all. I untied the ribbon, lifted the lid and stared. The box was empty. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I looked up, expecting someone to laugh awkwardly, to say, "Oops, wrong box." But no one corrected it. Instead, they laughed. Brian doubled over, trying to catch his breath. "An empty box for an empty woman," he choked out, still grinning. Kendra wiped away a tear. "It's a perfect match," she added. Maya lifted her phone, filming my face. Eli whispered something pacifier and giggled, like he was part of some inside joke. I sat frozen, holding the box like it might still contain something if I just waited long enough. "A joke," Brian said, seeing my expression. "Don't make that face, Mom. You've always been so serious." "A joke," I repeated softly. The cardboard crumpled in my hand. "You came to my birthday," I said, "to give me an empty box, to laugh at me in my own home." "Oh, come on," Kendra said, still smiling. "You're being dramatic. It's just family humor." I stood slowly, my voice low but steady. We must have very different definitions of family. They stopped laughing. Brian's face shifted. Mom, don't take it so personally. Too late, I said. I looked at Maya's phone still recording. You can stop filming now. I walked to the door. You have a meeting at 5, don't you, Kendra? I won't keep you. They looked at each other confused, surprised. Maybe they expected tears, maybe silence. But I gave them neither. Don't be like this, Mom, Brian said. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. It was a stupid joke. Yes, I nodded, and a revealing one. Thank you for coming, I added. You should go. And they did. No shouting, no slammed doors, just a quiet walk to the car and the hum of an engine fading into the street. I sank down against the door, still holding the crumpled box. Empty. That's how they saw me. Not as a mother, not as a teacher, not as a woman who had given everything to her family. Just something hollow, something past its usefulness. The tears came slowly, not loud, not frantic, just a quiet grieving for what could have been. I cried for Harold, for the family we tried to build, and for the part of me that still believed they might love me for who I was, not what I could give. The next morning I called Harold's old attorney. Robert Fisher answered on the third ring. Fisher and Associates, he said in that same steady voice I remembered from 10 years ago. Robert, it's Marjorie Bennett. I need to revise my will. There was a pause. Then, of course, Mrs. Bennett. I remember you well. Would tomorrow morning at 10 work? Yes, I said. And bring a blank sheet of paper. We're starting fresh. That same evening, I called Brian. He didn't answer at first, but when he picked up, his voice held surprise. Mom? I'd like to invite you and the family over for dinner on Sunday, I said softly. I want to apologize for how I reacted. He hesitated. Yeah, sure, 6 o'clock. Yes, and please don't eat beforehand, I'll cook. On Sunday, Clara arrived early. She wore a beige dress, new lipstick, and a smirk that told me she knew exactly what was coming. This is it, she asked. The Last Supper? Something like that? At 6 sharp, Brian and his family rang the bell. They were dressed a little too formally for a family dinner, pressed shirts, styled hair, polished shoes. They were expecting something. I welcomed them in with a smile. So glad you could make it. Dinner was quiet at first. I asked about school work. Kendra answered with vague politeness. Maya barely touched her food. Ely picked at his plate. But they were clearly waiting. For me to speak, to apologize, to explain. After the main course, I placed my napkin down. Brian, Kendra, I said, I do owe you an apology. For letting you treat me like I didn't matter. For allowing you to speak to me without respect. That was my mistake. And now, I'm correcting it. They looked up, confused. I walked to the desk and returned with a folder. When your father passed, he left me more than just this house. Over $2 million in assets. Stock, land, investments. You never knew because I wanted you to build your life on your own. Brian's jaw tensed. Kendra leaned in. I was saving it for you. For your children. But your gift to me last Friday made me realize something important. I paused, then looked at each of them. You see me as empty. I placed the folder on the table. So now you will receive nothing. Kendra sat back. You're bluffing. I've already sold the lakefront land, donated half to the teachers' fund and local library. And with the rest, I bought a house in Santa Barbara. I move next month. You what? Brian stood up, his face flushed. That land was ours, Dad bought it for us. No, I said calmly. He bought it for someone who respected what he stood for. That's no longer you. There was silence at the table. Heavy, stunned silence. Kendra's face had gone pale. Brian looked like someone had knocked the air out of him. Maya put her phone down. Eli stared at the floor. But I wasn't finished. I also rewrote my will, I said. All remaining assets, my home, my accounts, my investments will go to charity, scholarships and community programs. None of you will receive a dime. You can't do that, Kendra snapped. It's unethical. We're family. I looked at her evenly. Family shows up. Family doesn't humiliate their mother on her birthday. Brian stood up, trying to regain control. We'll contest it. Prove you're not thinking clearly. That Clara. There's a clause, I interrupted. Anyone who challenges the will is disqualified from any claim. And I've already passed a full mental competency evaluation. Signed, notarized, filed. They were speechless. Kendra finally exploded. You manipulative old woman. Your husband, he pity you. He told Brian he regretted staying married to you. That one stung. I felt it in my chest. But I didn't flinch. No, I said. Harold loved me until the day he died. What he regretted was watching his son turn into a man who would throw his mother away for $1. Kendra and Brian began bickering, blaming each other, raising their voices, arguing over the land, the will, the money. They forgot I was even in the room. Only the children noticed. Maya looked up at me. Something in her face had changed. Eli wouldn't meet my eyes. I stood slowly. It's time for you to leave. Brian tried to say something, but I walked to the door and opened it. They filed out in silence. Except for Eli, who lingered. Grandma, he said softly. I wasn't really laughing. I didn't know what to do. I nodded. Maybe one day we can talk about that. He gave a small, ashamed nod, then left. I closed the door, turned to Clara, who was already pouring 2 glasses of wine. Well, she said, that was a performance. No, I replied, exhaling deeply. That was closure. 2 weeks later I stood in the empty living room, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floors for the last time. The moving truck had come and gone. Most of what I owned was sold, given away, or packed tightly into boxes headed for Santa Barbara. Clara and I were driving down together. We had motel reservations along the way and playlists filled with old songs. We promised each other we'd take the scenic route, no rush, no looking back. As we pulled out of the driveway, I looked at the house one final time. Goodbye, Harold, I whispered. Thank you for loving me. I'll carry that love wherever I go. Our new cottage in Santa Barbara was small, sun-filled, and surrounded by roses. 10 minutes from the ocean. 2 blocks from Clara's sister. The kind of place where morning coffee tastes like possibility. I joined the library's volunteer program, started painting lessons at the community center, and even made a few new friends, people who didn't know me as someone's mother or someone's widow, just Marjorie. I heard from Brian less and less. The calls stopped being about inheritance. They became quiet check-ins, though distant. And that was okay. One morning, almost a year after I left, a letter arrived from Maya, handwritten, apologizing, reflecting, hoping we might someday rebuild something. I didn't rush to answer. But I smiled when I read it. Maybe not all was lost. Maybe, somewhere down the road, something good could grow from the wreckage. But for now, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea. The ocean shimmered beyond the rooftops. The roses in the garden bloomed like they had been waiting for me. I was no longer a placeholder in someone else's life. I was Marjorie Bennett. And I was finally home.